Hello there, everybody, and welcome to another installment of the Unwatched Pile. I'm going to grab some popcorn.
Nicely. Oh, I didn't even notice that there. See, I'm not even noticing the new aesthetic.
Buttery. Ugh.
Mm.
Who put all that butter on there? I love butter.
I was going to say, what is your preferred, topping for popcorn? I know you're a salty man.
Yeah, well, that's just my personality. You don't have to say anything about that. But no, I do like it very. I mean, I don't like it overly salty, but I do like a fair amount of butter in the middle too. I'm one of them people that likes like, hey, can you put some in the middle? Don't just fill it up and then like toss some on top. No, we need some in the middle too. I used to work at a movie theater for many years, made many popcorns. I know how to do it the right way. I've even done what you call special batches, where you put 2 batches of oil in there before you cook it, and you put a little bit of extra butter salt, and it comes out nice and orange.
I didn't know that was a secret
of that
thing.
Well, that's a behind the scenes thing. I'm telling you things you shouldn't even know.
What is interesting is I've been to movie theaters where they make you put your own butter, and I've been to movie theaters where they put your butter for you. So I've had it done both ways.
I don't like it when they do it for me.
You don't. You rather do it yourself. The thing is, when you do it yourself, it's usually like a separate station.
It is.
You got to get your full popcorn, go over.
It is. It is kind of annoying, and then you do worry that issue of getting it in the middle. But then that's when you just really pour it on.
Well, not only that, but usually there's like little containers there that you can put butter in and bring it with you.
I would never do that.
That's what I've done it many times. Keep in mind, you have 2 hands. It's like soda.
I bring my own squirt bottle. You know, like the little travel bottles that you bring, like when you put soap in. Yeah, you just put butter in there, and then you. No, I'm just kidding. We don't do that.
That sounds a little too much now.
Welcome to the Unwatched Pile.
Yeah, I know. We're talking about movie theaters, and we're physical media at home people.
We love the movie theater. I would go. I would be doing this from the movie theater if I could. But this is Well, this is the Unwatched Pile, the show, if you have not seen it or heard it, the show where we delve into our Blu-ray collections and we pick out one of them unwatched films. I know it sounds weird. Why don't you watch all your movies? Well, when you collect like us, sometimes you buy things that you've never seen just because you're curious. So you buy them, and sometimes they just end up sitting there collecting dust, and it's shameful, but it happens. And so what we do on this show is we go into that pile, dust it off, put it in the player, watch it, come back here, and discuss our first thoughts on it with a couple, me and Andrew and a guest. And then after that, we all decide, hey, what pairs nicely with that? What it would be a nice little double feature to help, make this first time watch just expand on that. Whether it's through themes or through maybe an actor, maybe you're like, I want a double feature Tom Cruise or whatever it is. You do that to make it a nice little double feature. And so maybe people can experience it the first time for themselves out in the world that way too. Or maybe they've seen both movies and they're like, let's do it. So, but that is the show. And welcome if it's your first time. So as usual, Josephine's popping in here saying hello.
We have to introduce our special guest, Stephen.
Well, we will. I'm getting there. He's special. So I'm not gonna forget. She's saying happy 4th of July. Of course, we're almost to the 4th of July weekend. It's very busy for me as a Pepsi man. Recent watches. Let's see. What does she got here? A raccoon in the midnight moon. What is? Oh, these are reeds. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Recent watches, some good ones in there.
Ooh, let's see.
Some good ones. Narayama has been a Criterion release for a long time.
I have this one in my collection. Cali Blues. Oh, I need to watch that one.
Yeah, the Wichita is a Western. The Verkmeister Harmonies is also, I think, another Criterion. Amazing movie, like a masterpiece of
Dogma.
Work.
Amazing, love that. That's probably my favorite Kevin Smith movie.
It's right now he's actually touring the country and showing it in screenings in theaters.
Yeah,
he finally got the rights back from wherever they were.
That means we're gonna get a Blu-ray release, a 4K release.
Umbrella just announced that they will be showing it in theaters in Australia. So who knows what's gonna happen with that? But yeah, Dogma's back in the news.
Oh yeah, I'm excited. But as you said, we do have a guest. And this is a first-time guest in general to the Chasing Labels universe here. He's never been on any show, so this is the first time. Apparently he's watched us before. I don't know why he would be. I mean, we're nobodies, but He is a big film fan himself. He does a lot of writing. I believe he's basically a critic. He can correct me if I'm wrong. I believe he's written some books. Let him tell you himself. Dustin Putman's here. What's up?
Hello. So happy to be here. But I have I've been a big fan of Chasing Labels for several years. I discovered it as a podcast, and it would just keep me company when I was in the office, bored and working, but wanted something to entertain myself. So I would always listen to it.
That's
and
fantastic.
then I discovered the YouTube version, of course, and I'm a big fan of the Unwatched Pile. So yeah, this is exciting to be here.
Fantastic, awesome. Man. I love it. Love it. I appreciate you. I discovered you through Ryan from the Disconnected. I saw you guesting with him a lot over there. And, we became friends on Facebook. Never really reached out yet. And I was like, I'm going to reach out to this guy, man. He's got he's got good thoughts. He does a lot of I love writers too. I like bringing writers on here. We got Johnny Pomato. He's a great, he does a lot of good writing and stuff. When we get writers on here, they always got good stuff to say. So I tell us a little bit more about what you do behind the scenes, what you're doing day to day.
Well, yeah, to start, just a brief background, but at the risk of dating myself, I was probably one of the early online film critics. Yeah. So I started in 1997 when I was 15. And I have to say that I wasn't like 30,
Yeah.
But I started then, and even when Rotten Tomatoes was in its infancy, I was one of the early critics that was on there. So yeah, I wrote regularly film reviews for over 20 years.
Fantastic, man.
And then I also am the author of the book that's actually, where is it? It's right behind me here.
Go for it, man. Get it if you can get it. Oh, I see it. Yeah, there it is. Get it.
It's called The Fright File, 150 Films to See Before Halloween. Yes. And it's available in hardcover and paperback. And it's just a compilation of 150 sort of essays on different, horror-related films that I'm a big fan of.
Awesome, man. You know what? I'm getting one. I'm going to order one. Awesome. You got me. I need to, I love horror, and it's one of them things where I wouldn't consider myself like a studied horror person. So I'm going to get that book to get me ready for this year's Halloween.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, but you can never have horror.
Yeah, I'm a fan of, all genres, but horror is definitely my favorite.
Yeah. Awesome, man. So where just so we can get it up front, if anybody's never been to your site, tell people where they can go find your writings and things like that.
Yeah, all of my reviews. So I wrote regularly full-length reviews up through 2020. So sort of like around when COVID hit was when I sort of semi-retired. So all of those reviews can be found at thefilmfile.com.
Okay.
And then, but now I still write pretty much smaller reviews of pretty much everything I see. And those can be found on my Facebook page, Dustin Putman, and on my Letterboxd.
So, I was going to say, I see your stuff literally popping up. You and Johnny, I see your stuff popping up every day. I was like, dude, this dude's watching all the time. I'm so jealous.
Yeah, I just feel like, and then, I originally stopped doing like the longer form reviews just because I had been doing it for so long, and I was sort of drained out like for doing it. But that actually sort of reignited my love in movies after I stopped. And then of course, then I just started writing like shorter reviews and putting them up anyway. So, I mean, in a way you could say I'm still a critic.
I think you are for sure. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. And times kind of change when it comes to like, not only film criticism, but I think just online discussion in general. People like short form things, whether it's a review of a movie, they always ask, hey, is it good or not? People want like short, concise things.
Blurbs,
that's really true. Like I get the sense that, because when I was writing the longer ones, I would post them on social media and I'd be like, here's the review, and I'd send a link, and I'd question, who's actually going there and reading, taking the time to read that. Whereas if I just post it right there, in like on Facebook or Letterboxd or wherever it might be, I have a feeling I'm getting more readers, sadly, even for the shorter ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough, man. I get that. I get that feeling. Even when doing stuff for this podcast or anything that we've done, I've had times where I've gotten drained, and felt like I needed to take a step back, and that happens. And you want in your mind, you want to fight that fight of like, because long form reviews and long form anything is important. I think we need to do that. Because, especially like things with Rotten Tomatoes, like people are just looking at percentages and not looking at an actual review that says an opinion. And like, we want to see, I think it's important that that stuff stays alive. But as on a personal basis, you got to know when to step back, and you don't want to hurt the enjoyment of the thing that you love, which is movies at the center of it. And I think that's good. I think that's good. And as you said, it even stepping back and pulling back and not writing paragraphs of thoughts is actually helped you be able to like reignite that.
It did, because I mean, I'm super proud of everything that I've written, and
of course, yeah.
But yeah, if I started in 97, finished in 2020, as far as the longer ones, I mean, that's 23 years. And, I mean, that takes a lot of time when you're also juggling a full-time job,
exactly,
or college, like, because I did it all through college at the same time, plus working on top of that. And yeah, so I would like go see things, and there would always be, I've always loved movies, but there would always be that part of me that would be like, oh, now I've got to spend several hours writing afterwards.
Passion projects can become obsessions.
Not only
and
that,
then obsessions can become unhealthy.
Not only that, but like,
can.
It's a different form of thinking when you're looking at a movie from an analytical perspective, as opposed to just like a watcher or a review or anything like that. You know what I mean? You're constantly like making sure you're engaged. You're constantly making sure like you're getting everything, and you're working things out in your head the whole time. Yeah. And it's a different type of viewing. And sometimes you don't feel up for it, so you don't want to short yourself or your view or your readers, stuff like that. So it's a whole different mindset. It really is.
Yeah. Now I do a sort of a similar form of that, but in as I'm watching something, I'll just uncontrollably be thinking of, what can I say within a paragraph, rather than,
which in itself is it's a skill. It's a skill to be able to get a lot within a small thing. You want to give them the most something engaging that will interest them, maybe in the movie, or maybe give them what they need, so that maybe they can decide on whether they want to watch it or not. That's what a critic's job is. It's giving people ideas to help make up their own minds. But that's awesome, man. That's great. It's great that you're having all this time. I get jealous of people get to watch movies all the time. That's past me, at least for now. While I have a 3-year-old. So, but let's talk about movies we just saw. We all three picked on something in our collections that were as unwatched. Dustin, as always, the guest goes first. Please tell us about which film you chose as your unwatched movie.
Okay. So yeah, when I was thinking about what to choose, I knew that we were going to be recording this in the last hours of Pride Month, so I wanted to choose something that would connect to that. And yeah, so I immediately thought of this in my collection. I've had it for almost 10 months, which really isn't that long compared to, some of the Blu-rays I have that are, have been on my shelf for over 10 years. I still haven't watched
we all got it, man. And we got it.
But I'm so happy that I chose this one, because it's a really good film. And I chose All of Us Strangers. This is the Criterion 4K. It's a film from 2023. And going into it, I really didn't know anything about the story other than it was a romantic drama that starred Andrew Scott and Paul Mescal. But it sort of blew me away, because it wasn't what I was expecting at all.
Yeah.
So it's directed by Andrew Hay, and it's based on a 1987 novel, loosely based, called Strangers. And yeah, it stars Andrew Scott as Adam, and he's a screenwriter in his 40s who has begun writing this sort of semi-autobiographical script about growing up in the suburbs in the 1980s. And he, it's hard to really go into too much, but what I can say based on like the first 15 minutes or so. So he's living in this high-rise building, and you get the sense that it's relatively new because there's very few people who have moved in so far. And he meets, so it sort of goes off into two story threads. So in the one, he happens to meet one of the other tenants in the building, played by Paul Mescal, and they have a brief connection, and sort of eventually start to have romantic feelings towards each other. But at the same time, it sort of goes back and forth between that, and he starts traveling by train to the suburbs, where he grew up. And I feel like I can say this just because it is in the first 15 minutes. He basically he travels to his childhood home and meets his parents, who are basically the same ages that they were in the 1980s. And they like welcome him in, and as if they haven't seen him in a while. And he sort of like reconnects with his parents, and it's done in such an interesting way. Like it very easily could have, I don't know, felt like a dream or like it wasn't really happening, but it doesn't do that. Like it's more sort of in a liminal space that's outside of reality, but in reality at the same time, and in the 1980s and in the present day at the same time. It's hard to really explain until you see it.
Yeah.
But I found it. Yeah, his parents are played by Claire Foy and Jamie Bell, and it's interesting because he's, for reasons I won't reveal. But they haven't seen him since he's 11, so in a way, he sort of reverts back to how he was when he was 11. And they're sort of stuck in the time that he last saw them, so he's actually older than they are.
Yeah.
It's very interesting, and it's fascinating. The performances are brilliant by all four of the main cast. And it goes in directions that I really did not expect. But it really leaves a powerful punch by the end.
Oh, I completely agree. I think me and Andrew have both. I actually watched this for the first time with you. And Andrew, I think, has seen this on its initial release.
Oh, wow. Cool.
But yeah, I have to agree with you. Powerhouse performances in this movie, especially from the lead. You said Adam Scott was his name?
Andrew Scott.
Andrew Scott, sorry.
Adam Scott, completely different actor.
It is a different actor, yeah. And the how we deal with what I would say the movie's dealing it maybe thematically like a movie about grief, but also a lot about there's a lot of other things, but like how he deals with his internalizes things and how we visualize that is very interesting in this film.
Yeah, I found it. It's fascinating. I think it also, definitely touches on isolation and loneliness, and the way that the Adam character, he just always seems to be sort of on the outside looking in at things. Like even his apartment, like you sort of like look out and he's living on the East End in this building, and like you can see London sort of on the other side of the river, and so he's like there but not, like it's really it's really
there's a disconnect for sure. And everything that he's doing, it's like you said, like when he's with his parents, he's not really being himself because he's being himself in the past. It's always like kind of there's always something being held back or something being at a distance. It's just a fact, and a great script. It has to be a good script. This type of film is a lot of just moments, a lot of conversations. Andrew, some thoughts, please.
Yeah, I'll say it is a relatively low key type of movie where you're just following the Andrew Scott character around. So it is so isolating because you're only following him on his story and you're only seeing things from his perspective. So you kind of don't quite know how much you can trust what is going on, but you're just along on this character's journey. And it is a lot about dealing with internalized things, whether it be feelings of ghosts from the past, regret from the past, trauma from the past into the present, how those things mesh with one another, how they manifest in our reality in, perhaps unhealthy ways, unhealthy ways in the sense of, mental things and whatnot. The film is dealing, I would say, a lot with mental health issues regarding a lot of those things that we internalize as human beings, because they are very human things, like you're saying, grief and trauma and things like that. And the distortion of our realities can be very real sometimes. You know what I mean? Whether when we're not in control of it. A lot of people dealing with certain mental health issues and whatnot. So the movie is incredibly powerful. Like, I thought Andrew Scott was he's flawless in the movie.
Oh, yeah, he's tremendous.
Like you're just the journey that he goes on feels so real and palpable. It's ups and downs and revelations and things like that. It's just so good. I'm a big fan of Paul Mescal. I think he's a great actor as well. He's a smaller role in this film, vital role in the movie, but when he's there, the chemistry between the two is so good because there is a romance that is at the center of the movie a bit, and that has to be real. You know what I mean? And it very much is. Yeah, it reminds me like of Paul Mescal does a lot of those type of sentimental films, films that are dealing with a lot of internal things. But yeah, I thought it was a fantastic movie when it came out. Like, I was like, this has to be one of the best movies of 2023, at least in my opinion. I think it was in my top 10. Pretty sure it was if I go on my Letterboxd and look. But yeah, I definitely bought it as soon as it came out from Criterion. It went straight to Criterion. It had no other, release in between then.
Yeah, and I actually wanted to say, like, I'm so glad that Criterion picked it up because it was released by Fox Searchlight, and like recently, them and 20th Century Pictures now is like they are really iffy when it comes to putting out physical media, especially on Blu-ray and 4K. I mean, I'm still waiting on Barbarian to get a physical media release from them.
Yeah.
And this was another one that I feel like had Criterion not picked it up, it would still be in limbo. It wouldn't be on physical media right now.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. One of the other, of course, aspects, the main character, Andrew Scott plays, of course, he's a gay character, part of the, the Pride Month theme here. And the one thing I thought was really interesting about it too is like the conversations he has with his parents about him being gay, and like kind of, that's something, without giving too much away, is something he's internalizing and then it's projecting into what his parents say in the film. And like, it's kind of interesting because he's like kind of having that conversation with his parents, but he's also having that conversation within himself. And like, I think it's just interesting to see them conversations played out and see how the parents react and how they, treat him when they find out, and like the questions they ask. And like, I think that that's an important subject that a lot of times in films like this can get breezed over a little bit. It can be like a quick scene or like something, but in this movie, there's like multiple conversations where they ask him questions about his lifestyle after they find out and stuff. So what'd you think about all that stuff?
Oh yeah. That was actually one of my favorite scenes, especially the one with him and his mom, where he basically finds himself coming out to her, and her reaction is very much sort of like an 80s sort of reaction, rather than a present day. I mean, it's still happening today, but she basically, voices that she's concerned, that it seems like, it could be a lonely life for him. And of course, back then, of course she was worried about AIDS and things like that. And so his reaction to that, as someone who, is 30 years removed from basically where she is, Yeah, it's just it's very provocative, very interesting. I think it really sort of approaches the topic head on rather than skirting around it. And I thought it
Yeah.
was, yeah, it was, yeah, one of the more powerful scenes, I thought.
Can't agree
And the
more.
same with his dad. He also has another scene with his dad that's really great as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think, like you said at the beginning, all the performances really great. Really put this movie over the top. If the performances weren't there, I think this could have been a movie that really didn't quite get its message across. But I think because of the performances, it's a really great film. All right. Well, so I'm guessing you really like this one. You'd put it at
Oh
top
yeah,
tier. Yeah.
love
Yes.
this one.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, we're gonna come back around to Dustin to see what he paired with all of us strangers. But now we're gonna move over to Andrew. Andrew, tell us about your first time watch.
Yeah. So my first time watch, it's similar to Dustin in the fact that it is the literal end of Pride Month. I've been talking a little bit about queer cinema here and there on Chasing Labels and whatnot, trying to get a few films here and there to add to certain collections I have of my favorite queer cinema directors and whatnot. And one of my favorites of all time, I think just in general, is Pedro Almodovar.
Oh
And
yeah.
I hadn't gotten one of his most recent films, and that was the one that came out a couple of years ago in Parallel Mothers, which came out in 2021. Um, Unlike Dustin, this hasn't been sitting on my to watch pile that long. I literally just got it probably 2 weeks ago for my birthday. So this is the rare occasion where I get something and then I watch it pretty immediately. It doesn't sit for many years. I remember when this came out, it was on a lot of people's like best of the year lists and things of that of 2021. I believe Penelope Cruz was nominated for an Academy Award. Yeah, Best Actress and Best Original Score was nominated from this movie. Pedro Almodovar has been one of my favorite directors for many years, probably a good 15 years now. I saw his movie The Skin I Live In, and I bought it at a sale, and I watched that movie, and I'm like, movie is incredible. Then I went back and watched his other films. He completely different type of filmmaker than that movie,
Yeah.
but still, I immediately fell in love with just his work and his style and his movies. So, of course, Criterion started releasing Tie Me Up, Tie Me Down, and a couple of his other films and whatnot. So I've been just collecting them all along. There is actually a video here on the channel that I did several years ago where I talk about all the films I have in my collection from him. It was, I think it was like Movie Collection Spotlight. I think that was the sub series. But anywho, Parallel Mothers stars Penelope Cruz, chiefly Penelope Cruz. I think the people will be the ones people know the most. She's worked with him very frequently for a good 25 years now. They are one of those director, actor, or actress tandems that just seems to work. Just works every time, regardless of whether she's the lead of the movie or not the lead of the movie. But Parallel Mothers is an interesting movie because it's very much on the nose of what the title suggests. You have two mothers in this film. One obviously portrayed by Penelope Cruz, the other one portrayed by Melina Smith. Penelope Cruz's character is called Janice, and Melina Smith's character is called Anna, and they happen to get pregnant at the same time, are roommates in the hospital together, and basically you understand what I'm saying. They're going on two different journeys in terms of parenthood, motherhood, uh, things like that, or just their lives in general. So you're seeing the kind of two different perspectives and two different trajectories of their lives, but they become friends and their lives intertwine with one another. I won't give away the reason how it directly intertwines because I would be spoiling things, but they do like intertwine with one another. And it's a very fascinating movie about not only this idea of motherhood, but I think a family as well, because there is book ending, book ending subplot in this movie about I believe it was during the Spanish Civil War back in the 30s, where a lot of families, loved ones, were just taken from their homes and executed and buried in mass graves. Little dark history lesson here for all of you listening. And so what happens is all these families, all these decades later, are still looking for the remains of their loved ones. And Penelope Cruz's character is trying to find a way to get a historical, archaeological, anthropological project going to exhume all of these families' remains and put some type of closure to these families, including her own. So obviously, family being a humongous theme throughout this movie, and because of the direct connection with motherhood and families, so that's kind of what's tying everything together. But what is typical in a Pedro Almodovar film is there's always more to it than that. There's always things that are going on within the plot that really push us along and are really get us, as viewers to be involved with it. And in typical Pedro Almodovar style, he's pulling the strings with us, and he's pulling us along on some twists and some turns that you may have expected, may have not expected, but they're rather intriguing, engrossing. And I'm dancing around it because I don't want to give it away, but it just makes you think, what if you were put in this situation? How would you handle it? What would you do? And I think Penelope Cruz's character handles it in interesting humanistic type of way where you become indifferent to a world changing, a life changing scenario. But also, what I really like with Pedro Almodovar's films is that it's all about character interactions. It's all about dialogue. It's all about relationships. It's all about those types of real human things. And that's what I've always loved about his movies. So that is kind of Parallel Mothers in an ambiguous nutshell. It is as good as they said it is. Penelope Cruz definitely is excellent in it. Not his most powerful film that I've seen from him, but still one that very much makes you think about a lot of the things that are going on within it. But yeah, I'm glad I got it in my collection. But a little soapbox thing kind of now is that his most recent film, for some reason, doesn't have a Blu-ray release. Don't know why. The Room Next Door, which was his first English language film. And I guess, we're here kind of chasing labels adjacent. All of his movies pretty much since the 2000s have been put out by Sony Pictures Classics, including this Blu-ray here. And for some reason, they decided to put out his most recent movie on DVD only, as opposed to all of the other ones that they've been putting out on Blu-ray since like Volver back in like 2004. And Broken Embraces and all this kind of stuff. So I just found that odd. Just a little aside, if you're curious about his most recent stuff.
And The Room Next Door is fantastic.
I haven't seen it yet because I was waiting to buy the Blu-ray. It doesn't exist.
I got to see it at the Middleburg Film Festival last fall, and it's excellent. So I highly recommend it. I hope that it gets. I feel like it might have a Blu-ray release in the UK.
It does. Warner Brothers apparently has like the international or European rights, and they put it out on Blu-ray. So if push comes to shove, I'll just import the Blu-ray from.
It'll eventually come.
I mean, Criterion, maybe they're going to get the US. Maybe the
US Blu-ray rights or 4K rights at this point, because I don't think any of Pedro's films have gotten 4K releases, and they are They are visual, rather colorful.
Volver got a 4K release.
You're right.
In the Fox Search, or wait, was it the Fox Searchlight 4K set?
Yes, I think you're right. You are completely correct.
Or no, not the Fox Searchlight, the Sony Pictures Classic.
That's what it was. Fox Searchlight, ironically,
Fox Searchlight would not release a 4K box set.
I mean, no.
Coincidentally, those Fox Searchlight movies don't get 4K releases at all from anyone. If you go back and look at their catalog, it's all Blu-ray releases.
Yeah.
So that was
if there was, Criterion's been all about some awesome box sets, especially with that Wes Anderson. Almodovar would be a great box set with what they've already got in the collection, plus things that they don't have yet. I mean, that would be pretty prime right there, I think.
Yeah, I've been wondering that myself. And Sony's pretty. Like they're pretty good in terms of licensing things out.
Yeah.
I'm assuming they have some type of direct deal because literally every single one of his movies, even if they play at festivals, they buy the rights to them all like straight up. Like it's kind of crazy. Although he does have that short film that's on Netflix, which probably will never see the light of day on physical media. The one with Pedro Pascal and Ethan Hawke. It's like a short film that's like, I want to say like 40 minutes long or something like that. When they're two, it's like a Western movie. I would love if that would make a special feature somewhere, but who knows?
All right. Well, Dustin, any thoughts on this? I know you.
I was happy when I found out that you were doing this, because I hadn't seen this one yet, and so I actually ordered it. so
Nice.
I got it in the last week, so it wasn't unwatched for long. And yeah, because I hadn't seen before last year. I hadn't seen any Almodovar films at all. Like his filmography just had snuck by me. And last year I went through and I watched like 5 or 6 of his films. I did all of the ones that have been released on Criterion. So Women on the Verge of a Nervous Breakdown, Tie Me Up, Tie Me Down, All About My Mother, and yeah, I did Voltaire as well. It also had Penelope Cruz in it. And yeah, I'm a big fan of Parallel Mothers. Yeah, this is also a very fascinating film. In a way, it's also, I wouldn't compare it at all to all of Us Strangers, except that it does sort of have 2 story threads going on at the same time, and sort of goes back and forth between them. And I'm not sure. I thought they both worked, but I wasn't sure exactly thematically what the connection was between the 2, or if there was meant to be one. That's the only thing.
Between the 2 characters in Parallel Mothers?
Between the 2 mothers and that storyline, and then the Spanish Civil War subplot.
That was the only way I could have connected the 2 was the whole family angle. That was the way in which I could connect it with, that either this connection with family and
the lineage,
and lineage and things like that. But I didn't want to give away. There was a twist. Pedro Almodovar sometimes throws in like Hitchcockian level twists in movies, and they'll get you. It got me in this one, and I was like, "Oh, Pedro, you're."
Oh yeah, when you find out what that is, it's such a gut punch.
It really is, and it's so real because the way Penelope Cruz plays it, like you could almost be put in her place as a viewer, and you're like, my goodness, this is something, I don't give it away. It can happen in real life, has happened in real life, and people have had to deal with it. So it's something that's very real. And I thought she played it very well.
Oh yeah, Penelope Cruz is excellent in this movie. So it's easy to see why she was nominated for an Oscar for it. And I will say that also, without giving anything away at all, the very last shot is just enormously powerful.
Indeed. It really is. And the movie kind of just ends. It's one of those movies where like there's not really a finite ending. Life goes on.
You want to know what happens next for these.
You really do. And
I love endings like that.
Like ambiguous endings.
I love ambiguous endings because it leaves it up to the viewer's imagination to kind of go on. Then you have conversations with people, and you just that's how cinema keeps getting talked about, is when you got films like that spark conversation. Yeah, I love that. Awesome. I'm the one on the outside. I got to catch up on this one. I've only seen a couple of his films. I think my introduction was actually was Pain and Glory.
Oh,
I think that's the first time I watched one of his films.
Yeah, the one with Antonio Banderas.
Yeah,
that's another one of kind of Pedro Almodovar's muses. It's Antonio Banderas. Kind of pretty good to have both Penelope Cruz and Antonio Banderas.
Yeah,
be your 2 like go back and forth between them. You know, it's pretty. You make a good career out of that.
Oh yeah.
Oh, and I will say real quick before we move on, the other thing that you always can tell when you're watching an Almodovar film is just the production design. They're so colorful.
Yes.
Oh yeah,
they are.
All right. Well, guess it's my turn. So this is one that's been kind of sitting in my collection for a good while. I pick things up as we do out of curiosity, and sometimes at a historical context. In this case, this film, when it comes to the queer cinema, it's a very important one based off of, even before I bought this, seen it. It was a very important film in the queer cinema because it approached the conversation of the AIDS epidemic as being a very real, kind of out front, like getting out in front of everything and kind of really being really real about the subject matter and getting to some of the social political things that needed to be talked about. And this is a film called Buddies, as I have trouble getting it in the center like Dustin did. And yeah, it's tough. And there is, Buddies. Makes me think of that movie Heavyweights, buddy. But this is a queer film from 1985, directed by Arthur J. Brenson Jr. I'm a junior as well, so I have a connection there. And this film is a very intimate film, it's very low budget for sure. I think I read it was only like $27,000 to make this movie. And so it essentially focuses on two characters. One is played by Jeff Edholmes. His name's Robert, and he is this. He's a gay man who is kind of apolitical. He's kind of on the outside. He wants to be a writer, and he's working on this paper that he's going to write, kind of about the culture, gay culture, stuff like that. And he decides to go into this kind of like buddy program, which is where you go in and
I'm sorry, not to cut you off, but I think that's actually David Schachter.
Oh, am I speaking to the wrong person?
Yeah,
I got confused. Okay, thank you for correcting me, because the IMDb doesn't have pictures, so I thought for some reason it was the other way.
The only reason I knew it was because I watched the interview with David Schachter afterwards.
Well, good. I'm glad you had time to do that. I didn't have time. Sorry. But thank you for correcting me. And so he goes into this program called the Buddy Program that where you kind of go in and you kind of somebody that's dealing with AIDS has somebody that can come in and help kind of take care of them, spend time with them, and kind of ease their way into, unfortunately, passing away, which is at the time, AIDS was such an unknown thing. People didn't know how to treat it. They didn't know how to deal with it. Of course, a lot of stereotypical things were put at that, that it's a gay disease, it's a gay thing. And of course, people just didn't know enough about it. And it's a lot of terrible things. So it's kind of taking that and then spearheading that into this kind of two people and having this character have to confront the realities of his own kind of culture that he doesn't really know enough about to be writing anything that he's writing. So he kind of learns more about his own, culture through this dying man. Very interesting film. I didn't know really what to expect going into it because I really didn't read a synopsis, but it really is a very intimate look at the subject matter. Please, you guys, I don't think Andrew watched this, but Dustin, please help me flesh it out. Because, like with a lot of first-time watches, sometimes you don't always get everything you want out of it on the first watch. Expand on that for me. Help me out.
Oh, yeah, sure. Well, yeah, like you said, I believe you said, so yeah, I think it was the first feature film that was ever made about the AIDS epidemic.
Yeah.
And I think watching it from a 2025 perspective, I think is probably a little bit different than watching it when it came out. I think that, yeah, it's easy to look at it now and sort of almost see it as sort of like hand holding as far as explaining like what AIDS is. And,
yeah.
But it also at the same time really sort of takes away the stigma of it. Like in the opening scene where he walks into the room, into the hospital room, and of course they want him to have like this full.
He's wearing all this medical
gloves and
clean
masks and yeah, the whole get up. And he quickly takes that off.
Yeah.
So I thought that was important to send that message. Yeah.
Right off the bat. Yeah.
That.
Yeah.
But I found it it's very much almost a chamber piece in that most of the film, not all of it, but most of the film takes place in the hospital room between the two of them. And I found it interesting that all of the supporting characters, you never, like, you see them either like in the background or you see like part of them, but you never actually see their faces.
Yeah.
So it's only really the two leads that are front and center in it. And Yeah, I just thought the friendship that forms between the two of them, and also the way that I can't remember what his name is, but the one that the guy that's dying of AIDS like helps the writer to, I don't know, see things in a different way, and yeah, sort of, yeah, he starts out apolitical, and I think that he's very different by the end of the film.
Yeah. I think he learns through him how important it is to get involved and have a perspective and not try to just sit on the sidelines and just, because he's writing these paper, and he's like, I want everybody's perspective in there. And it's like, well, some of this stuff is pretty bad. Like, we don't want anybody to know about this stuff. This, because he starts reading into it, and I think it was just saying like that God made this disease to kill gay people, like it's a disease for gay, it's like really a horrible stuff that really sets him off. And he starts having like kind of like a panic attack and kind of going, and just like it, yeah, the friendship that grows between them is very powerful and transformative, and yeah,
Jeff Edholm, yeah, I mean, especially for such a low budget movie, I thought his performance was outstanding.
It is, yeah.
And yeah, I don't know if you know like sort of the backstory of it, but
a little bit, yeah. I did watch some of the features. I didn't get to watch all of it, but yeah.
But yeah, I learned in the interview with David Schachter, who plays the writer, he talked about how both the director and Jeff Edholm both passed away shortly, like in the years afterwards.
It was a couple years after the movie released, yeah. 2 to 3 years or something like that. Of AIDS.
Yeah. So it just adds another sort of poignant layer to the film. But yeah, I found it really powerful, and especially with working with limited resources, I think that they did a really great job.
I do too. I think, and this is when it'll come back around when I talk about my pairing, but like, I think at the heart of the movie, the human transformation, the friendship is really what I honed in on in this,
mm-hmm.
and how you can meet somebody even when they're only in your life for a short time, that they can have a profound effect. And just being willing to take that kind of become that intimate with somebody is an important thing. So yeah, I agree with you. Very powerful film, and one I feel like I'm going to gain more reverence for as I watch it more, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So I know you, Andrew, you haven't seen it, so you don't.
I've not seen it, although I was looking at it. It is a Vinegar Syndrome release.
It is
from 2018. So the pre-Chasing Labels days. How long have you had it in your collection? Just curious.
Maybe like 3 years.
Oh, okay.
I think I almost watched it like a couple years ago, and then like I think I started it and realized that the movie was about to be like kind of a slow movie, like something that I really needed to pay attention. And at the time, I had like a baby in my hands or something, and I was like, this is gonna happen tonight. And then I got sat back down, and then it never got picked back up again. So, yeah.
Yeah, I've had it since whenever it was released. So this is probably one that I've had for going on 10 years.
Yeah.
And I've just never watched it. So I'm so glad that I finally got around to it.
Awesome. Well,
yeah, it sounds incredibly interesting, and not only incredibly interesting, but also kind of timeless, because dealing with kind of these life-threatening diseases unfortunately don't change a lot. People are still unfortunately passing away from AIDS and things like that. And so kind of end of life movies, you can't really escape that as a theme. You know what I mean? I mean, of course they would make other films afterward, which I don't want to jump into because I'm curious what Steven's going to pair this with. I'm assuming not a positive movie in the sense, dealing with death, dealing with stuff like that, dealing with an epidemic type of things. But you guys are right. To come out with this in 1985 is a pretty bold thing to do. You're in the middle of this, incredibly big time crisis that was going on. It's not like, they made it afterwards, so there's like a little retrospect in it. No, they are literally in the mire of it all. Fascinating type of bold filmmaking there.
Yeah. All right. Before we head to Dustin for his pairing, I just want to run through a couple of these comments. Early on, we had a nice comment in here about our guest here. Said Dustin has been a huge influence on how I shape my writing and genuinely one of the sweetest human beings I've ever had the pleasure of meeting.
And, that's Kyle. He's a good friend of mine.
Awesome.
Thank you, Kyle. That's very nice to hear.
And of course, we got Tony Meachus as a friend saying, hey.
Hey, Tony.
And we've got a lot of comments, a lot of people talking about movies in the comments. We will leave it at that. Let's move on to the pairings. Okay. Dustin, I want to know. Let's do this.
So thinking about a pairing for All of Us Strangers, I could have gone in a lot of different ways, but I felt like, to start out, I'll mention one that I had actually thought about as I was watching it. It just, for some reason, came into my mind, even though it's a very different type of movie, but it has some of the same themes. And then I was watching the director, Andrew Haig, his interview on the Criterion Blu-ray afterwards, and he mentioned this very movie. So I was like, well, I'm not going to do it because
somebody's going to think I stole the idea from this.
So originally I was thinking Don't Look Now, the Nicholas Roeg film. A very different movie, very much more in the horror realm, but it does have some similar themes to it. But anyway, the one that I did decide on, it's formally very different, but again, thematically similar. It deals very much with sort of drifting between two realities, two times and spaces. And so I went with one, and this is actually a film from just earlier this year, and it's fantastic. So if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend this. It is Presence, the Steven Soderbergh film. Have either of you seen this one?
I've seen it.
I have seen it, but unfortunately it was like paying attention to it, and then the kid was running around the room. I was like, God, this is how my life is.
Probably not the right type of
movie. It wasn't the right movie.
It's definitely not for that, because like you have to be kind of fully engaged with it, because it's I'm assuming, I don't want to take Dustin's thunder, but
it's a quiet film.
Yes, it's very quiet, very patient, very. Unless I'm overlooking something or I'm not aware, I feel like it's the first film that 100% is told entirely from the point of view of a ghost. And
I don't know, man.
I've been trying to think if there's anything else.
I mean, the ghost story is almost there.
That's the one I'm thinking of too.
But that one is more like
you're saying literally from the POV.
POV.
Yeah, the POV of it. That's what I'm. Yeah.
If Hardcore Henry was a ghost, we would have it.
But so basically, this is a film. It starts out with you sort of catch on pretty quickly. It's the camera is the point of view of this entity that's living in this house. It's an empty house. Nobody lives there. It's like roaming around the rooms. It like looks out the window and observes people outside. And eventually a realtor sells the house to a family, and they move in. And it's Rebecca, played by Lucy Liu, and Chris, played by Chris Sullivan, and they have two teenage children, Tyler and Chloe. And you discover pretty quickly that it's a pretty dysfunctional family. They're having a lot of issues. The mother, we sense, is, you don't really catch on fully to what's going on even through the movie, but like you get the sense that she might be involved in some sort of like white collar crime that's going on, like over the phone. And you find this out early on, so I'm not really giving anything away. And the daughter is grieving because one of her best friends recently passed away. and you don't really know what the circumstances were behind her friend dying. But meanwhile, yeah, as they just are going about their day-to-day lives, yeah, it's this ghost you're seeing from their point of view, just going around the house, watching the family. And then again, without giving anything away, there's another force that sort of comes into view that is a danger to the family. And yeah, it's interesting to see how it handles that. But yeah, I found it was marketed more as a horror film, and I wouldn't really call it that so much. It's definitely not the type that, you know, has lots of jump scares and things like that. It's much more unsettling, on a more low key level, but absolutely fascinating. And uh, how it sort of culminates in the third act is very unexpected. And I will say the very ending, it's one of my favorite endings of the year so far that I've seen. It just ends on this note that's both surprising, like absolutely bone chilling, and but also devastating emotionally. Like it yeah, it's rare that you can do all three things at once. And this movie definitely achieves that by the end. So I definitely recommend giving it a shot, and I thought that it would be um, a good pairing with All of Us Strangers.
I like it. I gotta give a good, more intimate watch with that movie, because you know, like I enjoyed what I was watching, but I was also like, I feel like I'm missing something, because the kid was like, "Daddy, hey," I was like, "Look, I'm trying to watch it," you know. But with what I remember of it, yeah, I could see how this definitely could connect in the ways of you know, just dealing with that, the ghost of your past, you know, kind of thing, you know, the angle and stuff like that. It's
this,
and also, and it also ties in because it also you get the sense just through the camera lens, through the eyes of this entity, you get the sense of how lonely and isolated they are as they observe this family, but can't really do anything to interact with them.
And
At least,
and,
so
until they get angry, I guess.
Well, yeah.
So yeah, for anybody listening, it is the first of two Steven Soderbergh films that came out this year. This one came out in theaters in January, and then you had Black Bag, which was his second film, which was dealing more of like espionage and things like that with Michael Fassbender.
I think right now, not a lot of people are recognizing that Steven Soderbergh. I mean, we all know he's good, but like taken for granted how awesome we're living in a time where you have a filmmaker like this that keeps pushing the boundaries of like telling stories right in front of us, and we're like two movies in the same, like coming out that close to each other that are both good
and vastly different,
different
movies.
Eclectic.
He's done. I mean, just go all the way back to Sex, Lies, and Videotape, and like he's just said so many different types of films for the studio, films really indie, low budget. Like
there was a time from like I would say 1998 to like 2017, Soderbergh had something come out every single year. Like he was consummate putting things out for a very long time. Certainly one of my favorites. I mean, I just like his stuff.
But yeah, he also he's, and like you said, like he's willing to do anything. So like Presence, I believe, was, you know, it had like a budget of $1 million. And but then he's also done, you know, these huge Hollywood films, like, you know, Contagion had to have been over $50 million. Or even Black Bag was probably much higher than that.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, our buddy Tony just said that he's his own cinematographer and editor, so he works fast. I that's what he's been doing over the last several years, is he's now shoots his own movies and edits them. And I think and he edits as he goes. Like he doesn't wait until later. He edits
remember
as
when
he
said he was going to retire? Remember that?
Yeah, I remember that. He had a whole big speech just destroying like the Hollywood system about having to like fight for funding and distribution and all this kind of stuff. And then he made Logan Lucky like a couple of years after that. So
and then he realized he's like, you know what? I don't have to do this the way they want to do it. I can just like make films on iPhones and make films on on digital and make it super cheap and still
what is interesting is that like the model is so different now from the time he made that speech till now. Like when he made that speech, like streaming wasn't really a thing. It existed, but nowhere near like it is now. You know what I mean? It's just the industry over the last 10 years has changed so much that it's like night and day now in terms of how to make a movie, how to distribute a movie, who, where, what, when, all this kind of stuff. It's incredible.
Yeah. And even though it unfortunately this is never going to happen because it came out like the second week in January, but I would absolutely love if it got a cinematography nomination at the Oscars. It's not going to happen, but the cinematography in this movie is outstanding.
Yeah.
All right, Tony mentions Behind the Candelabra, which was the HBO movie about Liberace.
I'm trying to think what the off-Broadway play was that he directed several years ago.
Oh, I don't know.
I can't
remember if that's on his IMDb. I don't know if IMDb gives Broadway.
No, I don't know.
They don't give Broadway credits.
No. It'll probably be somewhere on the
probably check out his Wikipedia. Maybe it'll be there.
Yeah. But all right. So great pairing. Anybody, you remember that? All of us strangers and presents together. All right. So we move on over. There it is.
Nice.
Andrew, what are you pairing with? Parallel Mothers.
What's
parallel to that?
What is parallel to Parallel Mothers? Well, this was a little tougher to do because like we kind of said when we were talking about Parallel Mothers, Almodovar is so specific to him. Like he's an auteur, so his movies are very specific to him. So I tried to play within the realms of motherhood, family, all this kind of stuff. I had another pick, but then I realized I didn't have it in my collection, which kind of threw those things into the thing. There was another pick I was going to go with, but I was like, maybe not so much. And then I stumbled across a movie that I've known for many years, a movie that I've talked about probably before. If not, well, we're doing it now anyways. It's the movie The Kids Are All Right. The movie starring people Annette Bening, Julianne Moore, and Mark Ruffalo, Mia Wasikowska, Josh Hutcherson. And this was, when did this come out? I want to say
2010.
Yes, 2010.
I was going to say that. Yeah.
That was very quick of you, Dustin. Now, you knew that well. I could, for some reason, 2013 was popping in my head, but I'm like, no, this is earlier than that because they look super young. Like this is them when they were like legitimately teenagers. This is like pre-Hunger Games Josh Hutcherson. This was around the time Mia Wasikowska was in the first Alice in Wonderland, the Tim Burton film, I think came out 2010, which blows my mind that came out 15 years ago. But this movie is dealing with family. Annette Bening and Julianne Moore are a same-sex couple that have two children, Josh Hutcherson and Mia Wasikowska, and they got their child through in vitro fertilization through an anonymous donor, which probably many couples have done throughout as long as it's been around. But the children are now, they're teenagers now, and they want to know who their father is. They want to know who the donor is, essentially. And the donor just happens to be Mark Ruffalo's character. And he gets introduced into their lives because the children want to know him. And his introduction into their lives kind of upsets the course of things, if you will. And the movie kind of plays on that idea of like human relationships, parenting, what does all of that mean and all this kind of stuff. It's been many years since I've seen it, so I'm being a little ambiguous here. But what I do remember is that Julianne Moore's character and Annette Bening's character are rather different types of parents. We've seen this in movies before. There's one parent that's a little more loose. She's loose with the rules, a little more liberal, a little more open. And then there's one that's a little more stricter, a little more traditional, if you will. Julianne Moore's the one that's a little more kind of out there, and Annette Bening is the one that's a little more restrictive, if you will, a little more, straight-laced parenting and whatnot. There's always seemed to be those two in all these kinds of movies. I'm going back to Mrs. Doubtfire, the Robert Williams character, loose cannon.
That's an extreme. That's
Sally
an extreme
Field character, way more straight laced. How they ended up together, because they're so vastly different in that movie, I'll never know, because they'll never do like a Mrs. Doubtfire prequel movie. But don't put it past Hollywood.
Don't put it out there.
They'll do it.
With AI, they might.
Well, or cast like younger versions of those characters. Go that route. But needless to say, there's always parents like that, and you can see the dynamic in the family structure in here. And then you've got the Mark Ruffalo character comes in, like I said, upsets the constant flow of things. I don't really kind of want to say how. Needless to say, like a romance angle types of happens, which throws in the whole kind of concept and theme of sexual identity and the ever-changing ways of that. That gets thrown into here as well. The director of this film is someone who I think has only really made. This was their most prominent film. I almost forgot the title of it. I should have had this up already, but I didn't. But I know that they worked in kind of like the TV realm and things like that. It's, can I pronounce this name? Let's see. Lisa, what's it called? Lisa, hold on. For some reason, my computer likes Annette Bening because it decided to go to Annette Bening. But I think it's Lisa Kodalenko. I think that's the director here. But she hasn't done much in terms of directing feature films. She directed like a TV miniseries, Olive Kitteridge. She directed, a bunch of episodes of TV series here and there. So not much in the way of that, other than this movie, which I remember being critically loved at the time, getting nominated for awards and all kinds of stuff like that, kind of a critical darling. And this movie's kind of always stuck with me over the years because of how a lot of the themes are timeless within it. Like I said, familial themes, connecting now with Parallel Mothers, because Parallel Mothers is about family, is about parenting, and it's also about children as well. Not as much as this, though. Dealing with teenagers is a lot different than dealing with infants, but still a challenge nonetheless. Yeah. But yeah, so I thought I would pair it up with The Kids Are All Right. A movie that I feel like, an indie film I feel like people need to go back and revisit after all these years.
Nice. Yeah, I've seen that one. I like it, yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen it since it first came to theaters, but I really liked it at the time. But yeah, I've been meaning to check it out again. Yeah, I can't remember. Like, it's coming back to me as you've been describing it. But yeah, it's one of those movies where a lot of it has left me now.
I probably haven't seen this movie since I bought this Blu-ray, probably circa 2012, 2013, somewhere in there. Because it's the original Blu-ray, even with the Focus Features insert that's still here. So that just tells you how long I've had this Blu-ray. Needless to say, anything on here is probably now expired. Yeah, because they're like promoting DVD sign-up stuff from focusfeatures.com. So yeah, that's how long this has been around.
And I can definitely see how it connects to Parallel Mothers in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, it's tough because Parallel Mothers was like kind of so specific. Like, we were talking about these specific characters' journeys, so I was thinking something else within the thematic realm that could get close to it. Steven, I don't know if you're interested in what the other movie I was thinking of that I don't have.
Okay.
It was the movie Tully, the Jason Reitman film, which deals directly with motherhood and its kind of trials and tribulations. The movie with Charlize Theron. I thought I had it, but I do not. Like, I think the latest Jason Reitman movie I have is Labor Day, the one with Kate Winslet and Josh Brolin. So I have to update my Jason Reitman section sometimes.
I hope you don't. You got to buy them Ghostbusters movies, I guess.
I do need to get Ghostbusters, actually. Well, the newer ones.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
I thought you were going to say that you were going to pick Mrs. Doubtfire. But
no. I know. I know it's crazy. I just thought about that while I was talking in the moment. Because Mrs. Doubtfire would have been interesting. Because that is a parallel story about parallel parenting.
It's yeah.
You see what Robert Williams does and what Sally Field does. They go on different journeys as parents. What an interesting connection there.
Yeah. Well, down to it. My turn, and Andrew's gonna love this. because it's a movie he really loves. So when I thought about buddies, and as I said earlier, you know, I really honed in on the friendship that's formed, the relationship that's formed between the two characters. And I wanted to think about a character that was similar to David's character, where he was needing to transform throughout the film. He had an arc. He had an arc where he kind of had a naiveness to him that then became more informed and he kind of became a more well-rounded person and a more open person. And I thought that this film, now this was tough. I didn't get there directly because first I was going to pick something very obvious like this that deals with AIDS in a movie that a lot of people in the gay community really don't like, I think, because there are some things about, you know, certain actors playing trans characters, and then, you know, it's kind of controversial. But I thought, you know what, this is just a little too easy. So I threw this one away. I had to throw it. And I honed more in on that connection between the characters. And so I went with this film because of that, and because it also has a similar setup in a way. And that is the 2015 film, Me, Earl, and the Dying Girl.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
Okay,
so
nicely done.
So in this film, you have a character that is a very much a you know, he's a loner. He has his own roles. He has his own way of kind of going about life, which basically makes him non-committal to anybody. He's a closed off person. He has Earl as his friend, but he won't ever call him his friend. He just kind of sets up his life so he can't get hurt. And so one day there's this girl who, the dying girl in the story, that finds out she has leukemia, and then his mom makes him basically hang out with her because she has no friends. Nobody will hang out with her. And so he's forced into a connection that he never really intends to commit to. And throughout the film, he slowly starts to, as he engages with her more, he starts to become more and more open and more of a better person, a bit more well-rounded person. And throughout this course, as film lovers, he is a film guy. He's a filmmaker. So you also get that fun flavor of being a young filmmaker, making things, and just that coming of age story, a true classic coming of age story. Andrew can explain this without going on a rant, how good this movie is. And of course you haven't seen Buddy, so you can't really connect the comparison like his, but can you affirm what I'm saying as being very accurate to that type of transformation for the character?
Very much so. I mean, so Me and Earl and the Dying Girl is actually my favorite movie of 2015, the year it came out. Yeah. I remember going to the theater during
10-year anniversary.
What's that?
It's 10-year anniversary.
Yes, it is a 10-year anniversary. So I remember going to the theater, watching it, and then I immediately went to Barnes & Noble and bought the book that it's based on. I just got around to actually reading the book, I think, like last year, so it took a little time. But anywho, I could definitely see how this could connect with the movie like Buddies, as you guys were describing it, in the sense that it is somebody going on an existential journey through the prism of having to become a friend of someone whose life is ending. You know what I mean? And kind of gleaming some type of meaning out of that, and some type of life-affirming things out of that, but also other things as well. And the movie I thought it was incredibly powerful. The ending, I think, is incredibly powerful. But it is also there's a movie love aspect of the movie as well, which I really love. Like he and his buddy Earl are like combing through, I think, like DVDs at a store or whatever at some point. I mean, they're remaking classic movies in their own like super low budget, do-it-yourself kind of way.
My favorite is Pooping Tom.
Yeah, like they're making like spoofs of that. Like they keep watching like a Gary the Wrath of God over and over again. I mean, they're just like, and it's like they're so unique teenage cinephiles that they can't relate to anybody on that level at school or anything like that. And I connected with that a lot because I wasn't watching those movies, but I was watching movies a lot as a teenager, and I knew no one at my school was actually watching any of those. You know what I mean? Yeah. But the movie, is incredibly heartwarming, coming of age, good stuff. I mean, I've connected with it on a personal level for a long time.
I think it's earned because a lot of times as we've talked about it before, I think we talked about this last time we had a show about manipulation. Some people, complain about a movie manipulating them into being, being sensitive about something or being sentimental. But I think that this movie earns it in like the right way, where you're not just like making a switch into the character. It's like it goes through stages. The transformation takes time.
Because you're at, the characters are so young, being a teenager is going through constant change as a teenager, not really knowing life in general, to go through kind of this kind of life type of stuff. So you're just going, like you said, through stages of like, some days good, some days bad, et cetera, et cetera. And then having to deal with all of that is incredibly fascinating. I thought it hit on a lot of real life truths. It really, really did. And like you said, it was earned. There's no like third act twist, like all of a sudden, eureka, he understands it. Because the movie really doesn't like give you any type of easy answer for having to deal with a profound loss in life. You know what I mean? Because there really isn't any easy answers to any of those questions. We're kind of just going through it as life goes on. But yeah, I really love this movie.
And yeah, that was a great pick. It wasn't one that would have immediately come to me, but it makes perfect sense.
Thank you, because that's what I strive for on this show, is picking the not obvious choice.
Well, I mean, originally when you were setting it up, I was like, he's going to go with Philadelphia.
Philadelphia is another obvious choice. There's a lot. At first I was stuck on the idea that it needs to be another queer film. It needs to be another, maybe something to do with AIDS. But I was like, does it really? Because to me, I think it's important. Films like this. I mean, I think it's important to find the connections between all types of films.
Oh yeah.
So so that we don't feel like that it's stuck in its own corner. Like I can only pair queer films with other queer films. No, that's not how it should be. I should be able to connect any type of film with any type of other genres, and they have some way to connect. And when it comes down to just character, is where that's where I like to find the most of my connections, are through character or through themes. And I think that's what
the themes are universal. So
yeah, exactly. There's certain universal types of things that I think, go past, sexual identity, sexual stuff like that, or go past, philosophy or theology or anything like that. There are certain like life things that are really go through all of that. And, unfortunately, death is one of them. It's something we all experience in one way or another, whether directly or indirectly with loved ones or family members or whomever. We all kind of experience that. So to connect buddies with another movie dealing with that makes sense, regardless of any other stuff.
And that's the power of cinema too. That's why we take it so seriously. That's why we get so passionate about it, is because you can really find, it's a really great way to find connections into other cultures that maybe you're not connected with directly at the time, that could make you connected and then make you curious and make you want to, get out in the world and, get involved. It can have that effect, So that's my pick. Me, Earl and the Dying Girl, and Buddies. Guys, you got 3 great, double features here. Go check them all out. Since this is 25, I'm going to finally go back into the archives of this and try to post all the double features from all the past shows to this, so that people can now delve into them, without having to technically watch the show. You should still watch the show because we talk about stuff, but I'm going to do that. So once again, you got Dustin with all us, I can't say it. All of us strangers and presents. You got Andrew over there with Parallel Mothers and all the kids are all right. And I have Buddies and Me, Earl and the Dying Girl. Dustin, thanks for joining us, man.
Thank you so much. I had a great time, and I'd love to do this again.
Of course, man. We love bringing back people, man. We love creating a fun. Honestly, I sometimes want to do this show more. We do it once a month. I just want to do this like maybe every other week. Maybe we will. I don't know, but I want to do this more. So
well, I have plenty of movies on the Unwatched Pile. So
we all do. Yeah,
we do too. But Andrew, thanks again. I'll see you. I'll always see you.
Right.
some point.
Yeah, and for those of you who are interested, next Monday, which is the 7th of July, for those of you listening currently, will be the next episode of Chasing Labels.
Yeah.
We'll be getting into all of the Vinegar Syndrome partner label stuff that's going to be announced this week. They just announced Arrow stuff from the late last month, as well as Umbrella releases currently. Who knows what the next week will show us? There is a holiday on Friday. Perhaps they'll give us that time off to recover. Maybe not. Who knows?
Yeah, probably not.
But that is what's upcoming here on Chasing Labels. Stuff that's been on here recently. Movies Down Memory Lane. We just did a new episode last week. We talked about E.T., the extraterrestrial. We get to
talk about Disturbia next time.
Yeah, next will be Disturbia. So check that out if you haven't already. I keep plugging this every single time. Check out our interview that we did with Sean Baker. That is now up on the channel as well. And we are in the middle of the summer sale season when it comes to physical media. There's a few prominent ones. Criterion at Barnes & Noble, Radiance on their site and at Barnes & Noble. Kino just announced their summer sale. Things are happening, people. So if you want physical media, it's out there to get.
Yeah, it's everywhere. But Dustin, thanks once again. Please go check out Dustin's Facebook. He's always writing his reviews, man. He's keeping up with everything. So catch up with him over there. I'm sure he'll interact with you.
Oh yes.
And
thank you both.
Of course, man. And you're, like I said, welcome back anytime. All right, guys. That is it for this installment of the Unwatched Pile. And hey, what are you doing here? Go watch stuff. It's way too late to be watching us. Jesus. Weird.